Welcome back, everybody. Here with me for the hour is my special guest co-host today, Jeff Hallavy. And today we're talking about getting over the hump of a negative past and learning how to move forward.
You know, and for many people, embracing a future of hope and positivity is getting harder and harder. Here to help us to learn how to look forward is psychologist Pax Tandon. Welcome, Pax.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
So tell me, is it really possible for us to let go of something from our past?
Oh, I mean, of course, and that's key. But the point is to let go and not forget. So it's in remembering how our past experiences have shaped us, in taking them as learning experiences that we can then fold them into our present and craft a flourishing future.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of future, you know, we were just talking with Roy earlier in the show and Robin in the last segment, and they found ways to move ahead while not dwelling on the damage and the pain of the past. So how can we, and people who are watching today, learn how to take the positive out of negative or even dangerous situations?
It's not an easy thing to do, but it is a very, very important thing to do. So every situation, every experience can be seen as a positive if we choose to. And it's all about choices.
Wait, I'm hearing something like, really?
Ding, ding, alarm bells are going
Yes.
off. Totally understand that. But we can always look at even the most traumatic experiences as opportunities for growth. And there have been so many studies, you know, one of the most salient that I can remember is a comparison between paraplegics and lottery winners. And, you know, they looked at paraplegics who actually, after the event, found meaning and purpose in it by, let's say, mentoring others or using their experience to talk about it, you know, and help other people, help guide them through that same trauma. Now, they compared them to lottery winners because this is a scenario where you think, I've won the lottery. Life is golden. I'm set for life.
They're never happy
And they were
afterwards.
so unhappy. And in fact, much more unhappy than the paraplegics. Why? Because it wasn't about money. You know, happiness, flourishing, these things are not about money. It's about, you know, how you craft meaning into your life. And so paraplegic or not, traumatic event or not, if you can take those negative experiences and see the good in them, see the growth opportunity and find meaning there, you're very well poised to move into a positive space and be happy.
Well, we're all storytellers. So it's the story that we tell ourselves. You know, my grandfather is a Holocaust survivor, and he taught me from a very young age that it was not just something you should do, but it was your duty to pull the light out of any type of dark situation. That's the way he lived his entire life. He was orphaned at the age of 12, and I mean, literally, he was completely on his own. But the story that he told himself was not a story of misery and woe, although he was living through one of the greatest tragedies, you know, known to mankind.
Yeah.
The story he told himself was something that empowered him to survive and then, you know, go on.
Your grandfather had it, you know. He was a very smart man, clearly, and you got some of those genes.
Oh, I would hope.
But that is something that a lot of people can do inherently, and as a positive psychology expert, we guide people toward how to find that light in every situation. It's something you just have to be mindful of, and if you can get into that space, you're very well poised to find the beauty in any situation.
A moment ago, you said you're a positive psychologist.
Yes.
What does that mean for our viewers who don't know?
Very good question. So as a positive psychologist, really what we're doing is guiding people from just existing to flourishing. So the literal definition is really the scientific study of what it means to have a life well lived. So well-being is really what we look at. But at the end of the day, you know, we're just helping people go from existing, simply existing. And, you know, traditional psychology, as you would know it, is really
What would be
illness-focused.
negative psychology?
Exactly. There you go. So we're negative
I know
side of the
people
spectrum.
who have used negative psychology. I'm thinking of past employers, you know, my
And I'm here
mother.
to buffer
Just
all
kidding.
that. But yes, that really is about taking illness and making someone devoid of that illness, right? So it's illness focused, it's a disease model. And we're on the side of, okay, now that you're neutral, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're flourishing, that you're happy.
I don't think neutral means flourishing at all.
Exactly,
Right.
and that's why we have the positive psychology space.
What can we do? What are some little things that we can do to help address our past experiences? Some little simple things where we can learn to take baby steps.
Good question. Well, I think, of course, it starts with wanting to make those steps, right? So it starts with really a choice to make a change. And once you've made that choice, it's a spectrum of what the issue is and what you're dealing with. Now, that could be a wake-up call, as you both know, right? Lori and Jeff, you've been through that sort of wake-up call idea, and you realize it's time to make a change. And that's one of the most salient ways that you could make that change. Another could just be, I'm just not active. And I'm suffering. I can't walk a flight of stairs. And I realize I need to do something about this. And then it's stepping one foot into the gym. Beyond that, there are so many resources now in the internet age. People have resources at just clicks of buttons, so you can go online and look at forums and find support in those forums, or find coaches. So life coaches can help guide you if you're stuck in a career, or you find a trainer to help guide your fitness regimen.
When people are stuck, what I've found is that very often it's because they either don't forgive themselves or they don't forgive others. Why is forgiveness so important?
Oh, forgiveness is key, because most often forgiveness, or lack thereof, is why we're sticky, right? Because we're harboring a grudge. We're harboring all of these negative emotions. And contrary to popular belief, forgiveness isn't about the person you're forgiving. It's really about you. It's about the forgiver. Because you're then released from that prison of grudge, of negativity, of anger, of bitterness. All of the negative emotions of the spectrum so are tied into a lack of being able to forgive.
And that negativity can make you physically sick. I mean, I think about all the issues with people I've had in the past, particularly before I got sober and learned how to feel my feelings and learned to take ownership of what I had done wrong. But before I did that, I would definitely think about isolating myself and about not being able to accept things. And it was just a kind of a devastating place to be.
Yeah.
But acceptance is a big part of it too, isn't it?
Acceptance is a huge part of it, but you felt that in a very real way, right? All of the negative emotions that go along with not being able to forgive. And once you get clear on the fact that that's your first step toward freedom and then healing and beyond that flourishing, you're in a good space.
Yep. I mean, I remember thinking about a guy who dumped me unceremoniously about 2 years ago. He never told me that we broke up. He just never called me one day. And I thought, I will never forgive this man. Now it's like, oh, who?
Right.
Anyway,
and here I am sitting here today, and I completely have forgiven you because I know how to forgive. Pax, how do people get motivated to make positive change in their lives? How do you find that? Because for a lot of people, I do think it comes down to motivation, which is this big gray sort of nebulous thing. But how can they find that within themselves?
Well, as we sort of touched on before, motivation, finding that motivation can come in many forms, right? So as we touched on, wake-up calls are a huge motivating force, because you can be in a downward spiral, hit rock bottom, and then you've got a wake-up call like 9/11, and we heard that before, and that just shakes you into perspective. And you realize, why am I down about this one thing when there's this larger world out there, and there are bigger problems, bigger fish to fry, as they say. And so that wake-up call can be a hugely motivating force. Or it's, as I said, not being able to walk a flight of stairs, and you're just tired of it. We're designed to move and be ambulatory. And so that would take you in a downward spiral, and that's your motivating force.
Pax, thank you so much. We're going to ask you to stick around for the next segment, which will be
I'd love
great.
to.
Coming up next, Jeff and Pax and I will be answering your questions live. We'll be right back.
That's so motivation.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Wednesday. That's Hump Day, of course, and we're here to help you get over whatever hump you're experiencing. Today, we've been talking about letting go of the past and creating the life that you want. And that's also including mind, body, and spirit, right?
Well, I mean, there's really, you can't separate them out. And Pax, my question is, how can your mind, body, and spirit help us heal from things that happened in the past, putting it all together?
Well, I think that was very well said. You cannot separate them. So each of these three components is very heavily involved and invested in the healing process, and beyond that, the flourishing process. So if you think about it, mind, right? That's our psychology. That's how we're making these choices. So you make the choice to heal. That's the first step, right? The body is where the emotions are. So when we start moving from a negative space into a positive one, we're going from negative emotions, which we feel in the form of stress, anxiety, to positive emotions. So we're lighter, we're freer, and then we're in a space of creativity. And the research we've done shows that it's only when you're in that space of positive emotions that you can actually find creative solutions. So that's very important. And then third piece is the spirit, right? We have to be in touch with our innermost self, with who we really are, in order to make choices that guide us toward the life that we really want to live, and not a life that we're sinking into or that somebody else is dictating for us. So in this way, mind, body, and spirit are all really heavily involved in the healing process.
Well said. We've got a caller on the Over the Hump hotline. Emily from Bethpage, New York. What's your question or comment?
So my dad cheated on my mom when I was a kid, and they ended up getting a divorce. It's been years, and I still can't get over what he did to us. It's like when I try to let go, I start feeling guilty. Like he doesn't deserve my forgiveness, and his guilt really weighs on me. It brings me back to the past, and I start feeling angry at him and angry at my past all over again. Like, how do I stop doing this?
Good question. Yeah, how do you when there is pain like that? I think if that happened to me, I don't know which way I'd go. It probably would be a pendulum thing. You know, being able to forgive, not forgive.
Yes. Well, thank you to our caller for sharing that. That is a painful experience, and one that many do experience, unfortunately. And, you know, we touched on this before, that forgiveness is really for the person doing the forgiving. So what her father may have done, or how he may be receiving any of this, is really not where she should put emphasis at this point. It's really about her letting go of that painful experience, because holding on to it isn't going to change the outcome. What she can change is her present moment. What she can change is how she thinks about that experience, receives that experience. And so the only thing to do now is forgive herself for holding on to it for so long, forgive him for what he's done, for this transgression on the family, and then figure out how to design something from that experience that will give her some meaning and purpose that she can use to find a way positive forward.
Emily, thank you so much for calling in. I hope that was helpful.
It was. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for your courage in calling. We've got another caller on the line, Patty from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Hi, Patty. What's your comment or question?
Hi. So a friend of mine and I got in an argument a few months ago, and she said some pretty hurtful and personal things to me, as I'm sure I did too. We've made up since then, but whenever I see her, I can't seem to forget the things that she said to me, and it just seems like there's sort of a barrier between us. How can I learn to sort of get over this and really resolve it for good?
You know, isn't there a difference between the forgiving and the forgetting? Maybe you never forget something, but you do forgive?
There is. And I think that actually helps us grow as human beings that much more. To forget is easy. You know, it's a much easier thing than to forgive, because to forgive means that you acknowledge hurt has been caused, and you're actually taking a step to elevate yourself above that. You know, now in this relationship, it's striking when the people closest to us hurt us the most.
And that happened. I mean, I remember how mean women can be to each other. And I remember being in my early 20s, and I had 4 best girlfriends. We were all horrible to each other.
Yeah.
Well,
that happens in the closest relationships, you know, in the husband and wife relationship in particular. You say the meanest things to each other, you know, you tear each other down because you know the points of vulnerability, but at the same time, the love is the strongest in that bond, you know, so we have to remember that it's when we get the closest to people that we're leaving ourselves vulnerable to that, but we have to consistently forgive that, because there is love there.
Patty, thank you so much for calling in. I hope that was helpful for you.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly, we have 10 seconds. How can people start living in the today?
Mindfulness. If I have 10 seconds, I'm going to say start to understand and practice mindfulness. That is how you get into the space of the present and self-regulate, and from there, craft your best life.
All right. Thank you so much, Pax.
Thank
And
you.
as I like to say, you can shake my hand before I even say it. Well, that was easy. As I like to say, anxiety exists in the future, depression exists in the past, and happiness exists in the present.
Be mindful.
Yes.
Rock
Did
on.
I get another handshake?
I am thanking you for being such an amazing co-host, Jeff, today.
Well,
thank you very
thank you.
much.
Aw.
All right. And thanks to you, Varia viewers, for all of your excellent calls, your posts, and your tweets. We love having you being part of the show. We can't do it without you. And again, very, very special thank you to Jeff Hallavy.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Great to have you here today. We'll be right back with my last word. Thank you.